starting things off with Roman Reigns addressing the biggest rumor in recent weeks. Just a few days before he made his WWE return, speculations were heavily circulating that Roman and his wife had welcomed a sixth kid into their family. It was an official report that was everywhere. Even mainstream media sources were covering the report. But in a recent backstage video, Roman stated there is no sixth child, so that whoever reported that first received some significantly false information. Roman joked that he's not trying to catch up to the amount of babies that Jacob Fatu had, and how him and his wife are done with their 5 kids. Roman also spoke about people that were coming up to him and asking him about how his vacation was. Roman said there was no vacation or break of any type. He said school was in session until June and how they started tutoring right after that, so he never really got vacation time. But getting back to the July 21st edition of Raw, that was also a big moment for Roman Reigns because it featured the first face-to-face verbal exchange with Paul Heyman since the WrestleMania betrayal from back in April. Paul Heyman pulled it off as if he was still acknowledging Roman Reigns. Heyman pointed out that Seth Rollins is going to be out of action for a very long time, and how Roman should lead the group while Seth is out of action. Now this idea doesn't really make sense at all for Roman to do. Heyman just betrayed him, so immediately linking back up with him is not even a convincing offer in any way. Also, what would happen when Seth eventually returns? Will Roman and himself be buddies again? That whole offer from Heyman made no sense at all, but it was only a frantic last-second attempt for him to escape Roman's anger. Roman added that Paul Heyman will want to take credit for what the Bloodline did in their creation, but Roman noted that the Bloodline was not any wrestling faction you can put together. How that was all God's work and destiny for them to be together like that. Roman also said that Paul Heyman never directly helped him hold on to the WWE Championship during the 4-year reign. How it was all the other Bloodline members doing the heavy lifting and helping Braun Breaker eventually got in front of Heyman, telling Roman that his prime was over 5 years ago and how Roman is now old news, and how no one wants him there anymore. A confrontation finally breaks out between Roman and Jade versus Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. A lot of fans were speculating what Roman's SummerSlam match would look like after his spectacular return episode. But this July 21st edition of Raw appears to clarify exactly what his SummerSlam match will be. It will be Roman and Jay facing Bronson and Braun in a tag team bout. A lot of fans are voicing some opinions, saying that this doesn't exactly feel like the strongest storyline for Roman Reigns. And right from the bat, that's true. Obviously, this current story for Roman is nothing compared to what he's been doing over the last few years. This SummerSlam program is definitely up there with some of his weakest stories in recent memory, but maybe that's because it is a backup story after all. If Seth Rollins was healthy, maybe we would have seen Seth versus Roman with some decent story there, but with Seth on the shelf, they had to revert to this tag team match, so maybe that's why the story feels a bit weaker. This definitely wasn't the original plan. Fans were expecting for a singles bout for Roman, as we have not seen him in singles action since the Raw Netflix launch back in January, but regrettably, we'll have to wait a much longer to see him in singles action. It'll be a tag team match there with nothing genuinely at stake, but you have 4 great superstars involved in the event, plus you have this mystery element around Seth's injuries, so that might be in play there as well. Will Seth pop out there during that match to screw over Roman and Jay in some way? Paul Heyman continues to emphasize every week that Seth Rollins will be out of action for such a long time, and as everyone knows, heels lies. Paul Heyman himself especially lies, so the more emphasis Heyman puts on Seth being wounded for the long term, the more fans expect to see Seth in the near future, so you may have nothing on the line in that tag team battle, but Seth Rollins' status will continue to be an element there to ponder about. The Wyatt Six have been back for a few months now, and this run so far Wyatt Six change appears to be more impactful than their initial run. Their first run consisted of them having some meaningless feuds with 2 factions, and then that was it. But with their SmackDown run, they struck down on tag team division right away, and eventually captured the tag team titles shortly after. The Wyatts got the entire tag team division in a chokehold, and no team in that division knows how to handle the Wyatts. So not only are they the champions, but they literally have full control over the tag team division and have it entirely locked down, and with their new trait of entering that gray area and cheating to win, well, that makes them even more dangerous and unpredictable now. But the July 18th edition SmackDown included a highly important adjustment for the group that a lot of fans were calling for. When the Wyatt Six were initially introduced, it was evident that Uncle Howdy was the lead and everyone else was following him. Not only was he the leader, but he was the genuine only speaker of the group. Uncle Howdy interviewed Eric Rowan back in 2024 and very gently introduced his members, but you never heard them speak before. Well, this recent SmackDown episode completely changed that. The Wyatt Six had a backstage promo in which every single Wyatt Six member spoke and had lines of dialogue. A massive shift to what we've seen from the group presentation so far. These other characters besides Howdy were all silent dating back to 2024, but that's no longer the case. This is especially a significant thing for Dexter Lumis, whose entire act was essentially not talking at all throughout his entire WWE career even before the Wyatts found him. So now even Dexter Lumis is dropping big lines of dialogue. Now it's like a nice little arc for all the Wyatt members. They were all silent and shy at first, but now that they've grown together as a family, they're all gaining the confidence to speak out and say what's on their mind. This is something that a lot of fans were asking for, and it looks like it's finally here. All members are getting a chance to speak, and that should really help them a lot as their programs continue to progress on SmackDown. So things are clearly looking bright now for the Wyatt Six, and hopefully that momentum can continue. A lot of conversation is going over to Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton, so we'll see what's up there. We'll also check out what's occurring for Naomi, Judgment Day, and more. Starting things off with Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton. It's a match that's been teased for a long time, with that payoff finally taking place at SummerSlam. Tiffany would well be over 200 days as champion by that moment, so it's a lengthy reign that Jada will be looking to end. But other fans are arguing that the intrigue and excitement around the matchup and all the potential really took a hit now that Naomi no longer has the Money in the Bank contract. And you could see their argument. There definitely was that extra layer of excitement on top of the Tiffany and Jade match, with Naomi lurking over it with a potential cash-in. Naomi has had issues with Tiffany Stratton all throughout 2024. So there was a storyline there for Naomi to finally get revenge on Tiffany by cashing in on her. Obviously, Naomi even had a deeper issue with Jade Cargill. So trying to stop Jade from winning the title or trying to cash in after Jade won the title would have been interesting for Naomi to do as well. But with the contract no longer looming over the match, there's some fans that feel like there won't be any shocking moments or surprises here during this matchup for the WWE Women's title at SummerSlam. But not so fast, because there still is an element of surprise that could interfere with Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton, and that's Bianca Belair. Several members of the Big Three are having great success at the moment. Naomi won the Money in the Bank, is now the Women's Global Champion, and Jade Cargill won the Queen of the Ring tournament and will be contending for the WWE Women's title at SummerSlam. Bianca Belair, on the other hand, is currently on the outside looking in at all this world title glory from her former best friends. That makes you wonder, is Bianca Belair going to keep it cool about all the success that Naomi and more specifically Jade Cargill is having at the moment? Or is this all quietly boiling up inside of Bianca Belair? Remember that coming up to WrestleMania 41, Bianca Belair was acting a little off, talking and doing heel-like antics and getting booed by a lot of the crowds on the road to WrestleMania. It really seemed like Bianca was the heel in a triple threat matchup at WrestleMania. What stopped all that heel momentum for Bianca was the fact that she had to walk away from the ring for several months due to her injuries. But now that she's back and cleared again, will Bianca Belair once again start to teeter into the heel zone? That's definitely something you have to watch out for. And who would Bianca Belair use to fully turn heel on? The answer is obviously Jade Cargill. And it appears like the seeds for that betrayal and backstabbing are already planted. Bianca was a special guest referee for the match between Naomi and Jade Cargill. The storytelling in that matchup for Bianca's character revealed a woman that was once again incredibly conflicted about what was happening in the match. She was attempting to evenly check up on each of her former best pals because she did genuinely care for them both. But after Jade Cargill shoved Naomi off the top rope and through the table to win the bout, Bianca had to count the pin. And Bianca simply seemed very frustrated and disappointed about how Jade Cargill won the match. She held Jade Cargill's hand up with a look of disgust on her face. She wasn't satisfied about the whole match and circumstances at all. So, the fact that Bianca was quietly inserted into the match as the special guest referee, and the fact that her facial expressions were all off there after Jade Cargill won the match, it can't be without purpose. It definitely has fans on high alert for what Bianca may do in the following weeks. Bianca just came back, and with SummerSlam already being so near, it doesn't look like Bianca will have a full feud and story at SummerSlam, but the idea of Bianca running and during Jade versus Tiffany, that seems very much alive and possible. Maybe Bianca plays it off at first as she's coming out there to support Jade Cargill against Tiffany Stratton, but that's when the heel shift happens and Bianca ends up costing Jade the WWE Women's title. It's the narrative of jealousy building up with Bianca Belair. Bianca's latest world title reign came in 2023, but lasted all of 30 seconds before getting cashed in on. So, the last time Bianca actually won the title was back in 2022. Bianca's on this 3-year slump without a world title. So, Maybe see Naomi and Jade around the world titles and not herself. Maybe that lit this sense of jealousy inside Bianca Belair. Also, the fact that if Jade Cargill gets backstabbed and betrayed by Bianca Belair, that should really lend even more audience empathy to Jade's character, because at that point, Jade would have been backstabbed and deceived by literally both her former best friends. Naomi ruthlessly took her out with that backstage automobile incident, and Bianca now ruined her WWE Women's title match. So, those two betrayals should help build Jade Cargill up even more as a babyface. And if Bianca does turn heel on Jade Cargill in the near future, you got to assume that the big climax for that feud would undoubtedly be the WrestleMania 42 stage. On Jade's first ever night back in WWE at the 2024 Women's Royal Rumble event, one of the first things they did to her was have her face off and stare down with Bianca Belair. So Bianca vs. Jade takes place at WrestleMania 42. It's a pretty big match that would be several years in the making by this point. The Bianca vs. Jade conflict is obviously big time money, and pretty much writes itself given everything that's been planted before. If Bianca does turn heel, then you could surely see Bianca striking Jade with some verbal low blows. Maybe a heel Bianca mentions that she had to carry the tag team and how Jade was holding their team back, holding Bianca back from singles competitions and possibilities. A real kicker in the exclamation point to a Bianca Belair heel turn would probably be her admitting to Jade Cargill that Naomi did the right thing by attacking her that night back in November 2024. Bianca turning heel and learning that Naomi was right about Jade Cargill would definitely be the topper for the entire heel run. So, yes, Naomi's contract may no longer be in play for SummerSlam, but don't fall asleep on Bianca Belair because she may turn out to be the special ingredient during Tiffany vs. Jade that alters everything up in that match.